priest asked if anyone objected to our marriage, and my bride slowly raised her own hand. We'd been planning this wedding for 18 months. I stood at the altar watching her walk down the aisle in that dress we'd picked out together. Her father handed her to me with tears in his eyes, and I squeezed her hand 3 times like I always did. The priest smiled at us and began the ceremony. Everything was exactly how we'd dreamed it would be. Then he asked if anyone objected to this union, that traditional line nobody ever expects anyone to actually respond to, and Olivia's hand started trembling in mine before slowly rising into the air. The church went completely silent. Not the respectful wedding silence, but the kind of silence that happens when 180 people collectively hold their breath at once. I stared at her hand suspended between us like it belonged to someone else, not the woman I'd been with for 5 years. Olivia's eyes filled with tears that spilled down her cheeks, ruining the makeup her bridesmaids had spent 2 hours perfecting. Her maid of honor, Jenna, gasped audibly from 3 feet away. The priest looked genuinely confused, probably for the first time in his 40-year career, and asked Olivia if she needed a moment. She shook her head and opened her mouth, but no sound came out at first. Just this horrible choking noise that made my chest tighten with panic. Then she found her voice and said she needed to tell me something. Something she should have told me weeks ago but couldn't find the courage until right now, standing here in front of everyone we loved. Her hands were shaking so violently I had to steady them with both of mine. Olivia looked at our families in the front rows, at her mother who was already crying, at my parents who looked terrified. Then she looked back at me with so much pain in her eyes I wanted to grab her and run somewhere private, where whatever she was about to say couldn't hurt us in front of all these witnesses. But she started talking before I could move, her voice breaking on every other word. She told me she'd been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 3 weeks ago, that the doctor said 6 months, maybe 8 if she was lucky, that she'd been carrying this secret through dress fittings and cake tastings and rehearsal dinners, pretending everything was fine while dying inside. The church erupted in gasps and sobs, but Olivia kept talking, saying she couldn't let me marry her knowing I'd become a widower before our first anniversary, that she loved me too much to trap me in that kind of pain, watching her deteriorate and suffer, that I deserved a full life with someone healthy who could give me the future we'd planned, the kids we'd named, the growing old together we'd promised each other. I watched her falling apart in front of me, this woman who'd been carrying the weight of her own death sentence alone for 3 weeks, while planning our wedding like nothing was wrong. She was trying to give me an out, trying to be noble and selfless by objecting to our own marriage, and she had no idea that I already knew. I'd found the medical bills 2 weeks ago, hidden in her nightstand under a stack of bridal magazines when I was looking for her phone charger. I'd seen the oncology appointments, the treatment options, the prognosis that made me sit on our bedroom floor and cry until I couldn't breathe. I'd spent the past 14 days researching every clinical trial, every experimental treatment, every specialist in the country. I'd already planned how to make the next 6 months the most beautiful 6 months of her life, and I absolutely was not going to let her push me away now because she thought she was protecting me. I pulled the folded papers from my inside jacket pocket, the ones I'd been carrying since the day I found her secret, her medical records, the ones I'd photocopied before she could hide them better. Olivia's face went white as I unfolded them in front of the entire church. I told her I'd known for 2 weeks and had spent every single day since then planning how to make her my wife anyway, how to love her through every treatment and every hard day, how to fill whatever time we had left with so much joy it would overflow. I told her she didn't get to make this decision alone, that marriage meant facing the worst together, not running away to spare each other pain. Olivia just stared at me like I'd broken some rule she didn't know existed, the rule that said you're supposed to let someone go when you love them this much.